You're listening to Shift, Human First Financial Guidance with Ross Marino.
Today, we are shifting the conversation with Josh Smith. Hello, Josh.
Hello, Ross. How are you doing today?
I am good. It's great to have you on the show. I was fortunate to meet you, I guess more than a few months ago, but got to hear your story and a company that you co-founded. Thought it was awesome. Knew we had to talk about it on a podcast. So how about you take the first 60 seconds and just introduce yourself?
Yeah, no. So once again, thanks for having me, Ross. And so my name's Josh Smith, co-founder and CEO of Virgil. And, really my story is a story in which, I spent my entire career in and around wealth management, institutional investment management. This isn't my first rodeo. And so the story of Virgil really is a story of my first business that I helped build the investment book of record and performance book of record for many of the world's largest institutions, many of the world's largest endowments, pension funds, and single family offices. Leverage that system. I sold that business to NASDAQ in March of 2020. And when I sold that business, that generated 100% of the wealth that my family and I have. My parents were school teachers, so this was the world of financial advisory was completely new to me. Besides the fact that I'd worked with large institutional investors, I myself had never had a financial advisor. And so when the money came in, COVID had just hit. So around April 1st, COVID had just hit. I was starting to talk with financial advisors, watching the markets go all over the place, listening that the world was potentially going to end. And to make a long story short, as I was talking with financial advisors and comparing how they were presenting the investment options that were potentially available to me within their risk tolerance profile or my risk tolerance profile, or however they thought about investing, what I began to realize was that the kind of idea of collecting the information, extracting, where your investments were today. So I had money in some stocks and Fidelity and Schwab accounts that I had chosen when COVID had kind of made the market crash. And I was interviewing financial advisors. And so I realized that process of them getting the data out of my Fidelity and Schwab statements was really cumbersome. It was people manually typing it into financial planning engines. It was people typing it into Morningstar. It was people typing it into many of the other applications out there like YCharts, et cetera. And then they would take that information and either present a tear sheet from that application to me, or for my current portfolio, they would present maybe an investment strategy that they were thinking about putting me in as kind of the proposed side of the portfolio. And it all just seemed very discombobulated and really just disconnected from the extraction, from the analytics, to maybe they were taking things into Excel. And I started to say, well, is this actually how you're going to invest me? And then they said, well, we've got a team that's going to look at the tax consequences and everything of transitioning you. Because again, I deployed the capital when the market was down because of COVID, and the market started to ride up pretty quickly thereafter. And so I had tax consequences that were going to be caused if I transitioned these assets. And so I just felt really strongly that having sold a business and built a business and seeing what I thought was a very disconnected process and how long it took to actually come back to me with a relevant conversation and relevant information based on the questions I asked. I thought that there was a tremendous opportunity to create a product that really served the financial advisor marketplace, that really allowed them to communicate their value proposition on a transition, or the value proposition as to why you should rebalance or repropose a portfolio. And ultimately, that's what Virgil's become.
It's a really neat service. I know as an advisor for decades, literally, as you were describing that process, all I kept thinking in my head was clunky, clunky, clunky. That's what it's like, because the services didn't talk to each other. There's spreadsheets, there's manual input. It was a tough thing. And really, as an advisor, you eventually you just don't do what you really want to do, because you just don't have the time unless it's maybe a larger client. So to actually have technology that can roll out and do that, it's going to help for all types of applications. But really, I mean, I kind of see this as it's the personalization. It's not just the black box of, hey, let me show you what a portfolio looks like. This is really much more personalized.
100%. Yeah, it's personalized and accelerating, right? I think on the financial advisor side, because we're streamlining this process, it's very accelerating in terms of what we've seen across our client base in the way that it engenders trust, it engenders calm, and it engenders, really a sense of, oh my goodness, I've had my financial advisor for 5-10 years, or my parents have been with a financial advisor for, multiple decades, and they've never shared this information with me the way that I provided you 1 or 2 statements, and you're telling me things and giving me considerations that I've never even thought. And so it creates an acceleration of that bond between, a prospective advisor or current advisor and that client in ways that I don't think, current performance systems or, a lot of the incumbent systems do. But going to the personalization comment, I think, look, that's where we're headed, right? There are a lot of statistics out there. We know the money in motion that's occurring 3.5 times more money in motion post-pandemic than pre-pandemic already. We know that roughly $80 trillion worth of assets are going to be transitioned between generations here over the next 20-25 years. Only 1 in 10 individuals stay with a financial advisor where that money was inherited from. And so if you look at all these statistics, right, there is a whole wave of money in motion that's going to occur. And what I realized as part of my founding story and our co-founders' founding stories was that when we sat down with these financial advisors, it was like, look, you're going to fit within 1 or 4 buckets. And like I said, I deployed capital in COVID, things went up. I could either go that route or go to a multifamily office, given certain kind of wealth and things like that. And so, felt really strongly that, hey, I want to be able to create a system and give financial advisors, within the confines of how they advise, I want to be able to have a system that allows them to tailor their communication and tailor the conversation quickly, effectively, and personalized to the needs of each and every individual that they're talking to. And this goes beyond just investments, right? We see now software coming up on the tax side, on the trust and estate side. We see it on the insurance side. And really, I think that advisors, on the kind of client acquisition and on the constant engagement, we're going to have to go beyond just performance systems at this point in time to be able to really, I think, retain clients, maintain clients. I think gone are the days where, you can just rely on perhaps keeping somebody on book for 20 to 30 years. Just given the new generation and the transition of wealth that's going to occur, the retirement of advisors, we know the trends there, we know the inorganic growth stories that are continuing to occur. And all of these things create friction in the process. And so the ability to get hyper-personalized with technology so that it's not super cumbersome, like you said, and be able to even do all the things that you want to do in significantly faster time, very personalized to that end client, really helps advisors both acquire and retain clients. And those stats bear out. I mean, our clients see a 50% acceleration decision timeframes, and they're winning 20% more business than they were winning beforehand with deploying our application.
And those are the 2 numbers that are going to stand out to me, right? 50% and 20%. Can you repeat those again?
Yeah, so 50% acceleration decision timeframes. So, the best way I think to describe it in software, we use pipeline, methodologies, right? So, how long have you known someone? How long have you been engaging with them? How long does it take you on average to close a typical prospective client? Our clients are seeing up to 50% acceleration in those decision timeframes. And a lot of that is because of the process that we undertake. And we've said now several times already, the acceleration that leveraging a platform like Virgil provides in terms of extracting the data, getting the data surfaced, analyzing it, and then being able to present something that's really personalized to that end client is creating that trust faster. It's causing people to make decisions more quickly, right? And effectively. And that's what our system's been able to do. And they're winning more business because of, anecdotes like, wow, I had no idea that was going on in my portfolio. Wow, I had no idea that I was, misallocated based on my perception of my own risk tolerance and your perception of the risk tolerance. We've seen crazy stories like 25% of a portfolio in structured notes, and they had no idea they were in any structured notes. And this was a $20 million book that transitioned in 2 weeks. I don't know how often that happens to financial advisors, but that's a scenario that's occurred in the Virgil platform. And those aren't everyday scenarios, right? But these are things that you see. And that's another kind of point that I'll point out is that we feel very strongly that the industry has historically been very risk tolerance focused because it's so position based, right? But what Virgil does is because we're looking at tax lots, because we're looking at transactions, we have what we call our 5 pillars: performance, risk, diversification, taxes, and fees. And so when you're sitting down and talking to a client, it's not only personalized from a risk perspective, but it's personalized across those 5 pillars, which again helps add to the conversation, helps engender trust, because these are not often conversations you're having day to day with your advisor.
Yeah, and anything that's going to speed the decision process is always going to catch my attention. And the only way you're going to speed the decision process is if trust is established. Right.
Correct.
That
100%.
is the ultimate. The faster you get to that point where they say, I trust you, or I don't trust you, or we're not a good fit, the faster the better, right? One way or the other. How about, and I can't help it, I just listen to you and think, I love fintech. You know,
Yeah.
wish I had this stuff 20, 30 years ago, but it's great to see what's out there, what's coming. How about you walk us through the mechanics? So if I'm sitting there, got a prospect, you know, just the before and the after, how you extract statements, all that stuff. Just if you could walk us from the start of, I just got a prospect, what do I do? How does Virgil work?
Yeah. So, look, every financial advisor is different, but generally speaking, right, you see a lot of our clients, we sit alongside the financial planning process, right? If they do a financial planning process, and our echelon of clients run all the way from people serving mass affluent, advisors serving mass affluent, all the way up to multifamily offices. So, the mechanics of the process at this juncture, right? If you want to do risk tolerance, we have a risk tolerance questionnaire that you can send to this prospective client so that you can identify their risk tolerance. At the same time, we've also brought in the financial advisor's investment strategy. So to be perfectly clear, because I get asked this question all the time, we are not a AI-based investment management application, right? We are sitting on top of how you do investing. We are not making any recommendations. We're simply saying if you use our risk tolerance, we can tie that in to the investment strategies that fit that risk tolerance, but the advisor always has the ability to tweak, right? And so you've got the risk tolerance questionnaire, you've got the advisor's investment strategies. At the same time, the advisor requests from a prospective client, whether they have one advisor or multiple advisors, can you provide account statements from wherever they are, any custodian or broker-dealer, period, full stop. That goes into the system. And then in as few as 2 minutes up to an hour, we extract every position, transaction, fee, tax lot, realized gain loss, and unrealized gain loss from those financial statements. And we then immediately, because you've got the risk tolerance, investment strategies, and the financial statement data, we now can create a comparison across 200 plus analytics. Again, the 5 pillars that shows here's where you're at today, and here's something that we're going to compare against. Now, a lot of advisors initially will compare against a market index, right? The S&P 500, a 70-30, 60-40 portfolio, that's basic. They might compare it against investment strategy. But ultimately, our system has the ability to actually walk through a formal transition of a client from here's where you're at today to this is exactly how I'm going to invest you based on the conversations that we've been having. Maybe Microsoft is important to you because it's been in your family for a long time. Maybe Exxon. I live in Texas, right? People have had an Exxon in the family for 50 to 100 years, going back to, original company names, right? So, you see those types of things occur, and you can actually build and do all those building blocks and see the ramifications across those pillars: performance, risk, diversification, taxes, and fees, across the entire portfolio. And so a client can very quickly, and the advisor can very quickly say, here's where you're at today, here's where you're going. And all of that information gets synthesized down based on compliance and how the advisor wants to present that transition to the client in a beautiful white labeled proposal, right? And so you go from engaging with the client, ingesting their data, sitting on top of your data as the advisor, your investment strategies, run simple comparisons across 200 plus analytics, and then be able to generate a beautiful white labeled proposal that is, fully branded to you. It's got certifications, it's got team pictures if you've got multiple team members, it's got all the disclosures, compliance has already approved it. So it's just boom, boom, boom. And that process, what we've seen is just, it just significantly reduces time to engaging with the client in a really meaningful way. So that's really the mechanics of how that process works.
I can see why it saves so much time and increases the end result and the output. How can people find you and find the company?
Yeah, so Virgil, you can feel free to reach out to me, jsmith@virgilwealth.com, or info@virgilwealth.com, or sales@virgilwealth.com. Our website's simply vrglwealth.com, and we're at a lot of conferences, so feel free to reach out. Happy to meet you in person. We're going to start doing lunch and learns as well in some major cities. So we love to meet people in person, or always happy to do it virtually as well.
Awesome. Josh, thanks for being on the show. Appreciate what you're doing with Virgil, and I know you guys are going to be really successful.
Thanks, Ross. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for listening to Shift with Ross Marino. Please visit humanfirst.live to learn more. This show is for general information purposes only and is not intended to provide recommendations or advice. Speak with a legal, tax, or financial advisor before making any decisions. Past performance references are historical and do not guarantee future results.